Tonight I'd like to take a look at this book. It's the Encyclopedia of Witchcraft and Demonology. It was written by Russel Robbins. Now this book is actually an encyclopedia. It's very thorough. I very much enjoyed reading the introduction, which itself was full of interesting facts. Something I didn't realise was back in the 15th to 18th centuries, you didn't actually have to sort of commit an act of maleficia. Maleficia being sorcery. It was seen as if you had made a pact with the devil, then you were a witch, because to go against God was an act of treason. And of course, you know, any sort of treason against God was severely punished. So it was the pact which was the offence. No sort of hocus pocus. Of course, if you did hocus pocus, you know, you were definitely getting accused of being a witch. But it was the pact made with the devil, which was the offence. Some quotes from the book read, one such as this: Protestant preacher George Clifford summed up, "A witch by the word of God ought to die the death, not because she killeth men, for that she cannot, unless it be those witches which kill by poison, which either they receive from the devil, or he teacheth them to make, but because she dealeth with devils." It says, by this reasoning, a white witch, someone who might do good by their neighbour, is just as guilty as a bad witch, you know, somebody who might commit sorcery. William Perkins wrote, "In like manner, though the witch were in many respects profitable, and did not hurt, but procured much good, yet because he hath renounced God, his king and governor, and hath bound himself by other laws to the service of the enemies of God and his church, death is his portion justly assigned to him by God, he may not live." Now, the devil would reward his witches, you know, for their allegiance by providing them with demons. Now, these demons could take the forms of small animals, insects, you know, rodents, that sort of thing. And the witches would treat these familiars as pets, to feed them their pets, which was often on their own blood. The witch would have small marks, blemishes, maybe nodules, or all those sort of spots. So these blemishes, these marks on the witch's body, were deemed as the outward signs of witchcraft, you know, and often the accused would be thoroughly searched for such signs, you know, signs that they'd been rewarded from the devil. You know, they would have their head shaved, that they would be searched underneath their eyelids, their internal cavities would be searched. But of course, you know, lumps and bumps abound. Unfortunately, that was outward signs that they were in allegiance with the devil and would be punished. There was a standardised set of questions that a witch would be asked under torture. Some of these include: how long have you been a witch? Why did you become a witch? How did you become a witch and what happened on that occasion? Who is the one you chose to be your incubus? What was his name? What was the name of your master among the evil demons? What was the oath you were forced to render him? What animals have you bewitched in sickness and or death? And why did you commit such acts? Who are your accomplices? What is the ointment with which you rub your broomstick made of? What tempests have you raised, and who helped you to produce them? Now, the torture process would be usually conducted over 3 stages. The first stage being, they were shown into the torture chamber, shown the implements of torture to induce fear. And the last stage, which was often the worst form, was used to get the names out of people. You wouldn't want to put your worst enemy through this sort of torture, let alone your neighbours and your friends. So they would hold off on the worst form of torture. And you would be forced to come up with names. It was lies, but you would have to, because once accused of witchcraft, you had no hope. Hardly anybody was found innocent. At best, you would get a non-proven verdict. But that really was only in theory, because you would be tortured until you confessed, or until you died. Absolutely horrendous torture that was prolonged. There is no sort of time span. It wasn't right, we'll torture you for an hour. It went on for weeks. Reading directly from the book is an example of what torture was like. This is a court report from November 15th, 1637. It's in German dialect, written in the third person. Where had she received these devil's marks? She does not know. She had nothing to do with the devil. Inasmuch the accused does not respond to merciful treatment, she is brought into the torture chamber. Evidence taken down to the torture chamber. After being put on the ladder and the ropes tightened a little, she says, yes, she could be a witch. When released, she announces she is not a witch. Therefore, she is put back on the ladder and drawn once, twice, thrice. Finally, she is released on the admission that she is a witch. But immediately she becomes stubborn and denies that she is a witch. Then again, she is drawn even more tightly on the ladder. She confesses it is true that 14 years ago, when she was unmarried, she had become a witch. But since she had testified she'd been married for 23 years, how could it be only 14 years ago that she had become a witch? At this, she asked to be taken off the ladder when she would tell the truth. No, she must first make a start at confessing she deserves to remain on the ladder. When she finds out she is not going to be released, she says that about 18 years ago, once her husband had come home drunk and wished the devil would take her. At that time, she had just given birth to another child, and her children, young and old alike. The next day, after further lengthy questioning, the report goes on. Since the prisoner feigns sickness and seems to want to deny her evidence, and since the signs of her piety of yesterday seems to fade, she is ordered to be flogged in the torture chamber to induce fear and a true testimony. After 3 floggings, she says that the devil, dressed in black, came to her prison cell last night. He arrived precisely between 11 and 12 o'clock and had intercourse with her, but he caused her so much pain that she could hardly hold him, and she thinks her back and thighs are falling apart. Furthermore, she promised to surrender her body and soul to him again, to reveal nothing of this pact, and to remain true to only him, and to oppose the judges for as long as she can. In return, her incubus promised to help her and ordered her to think about how she could commit suicide. To this end, she continued to scratch open with her fingernails the middle veins on her right arm, a half basin wide, where she had a bloodletting 2 weeks ago. Because the scars were very recent and the veins could be opened easily. In this way, she could kill herself without attracting attention and go to the devil in both body and soul. Now, with regards to the trials, it's interesting to note that trials were often sort of held in secret. Informers were supposed to be sort of, trusted people, but in fact, any sort of gossip or hearsay was taken that you were a witch. Frequently, charges made against you wouldn't be disclosed. If you had if you had somebody stand up for you as a witness, they would be seen as being your friend, therefore guilty by association. And of course, lawyers, if you could afford a lawyer at the time, didn't want to do too good a job, and in case they got accused of being a witch, helping you out, that sort of thing. Another thing that isn't commonly really known is that at one time, witchcraft and witch hunting, witch trials, become quite a lucrative practice. The family would have to pay for the trials. The food that the accused would eat would have to be paid for. The judges would often have banquets. Staff would have to be paid for, like the guards, the torturers. Some contractors would have to be paid for going to get the stakes, for the purchase of the tar to burn the witch on. Often estates would be sold to pay for these expenses, with the proceeds often going to the church. So yeah, it was sort of in everyone's best interest, even down to your local innkeeper, as a lot of people would public crowds would attend an execution, so the innkeeper would potentially make more business on those particular days. Continuing through the rest of the book, we can see lovely black and white images. It's all in alphabetical order. Bits on exorcism, John Dee. Yeah, so all in all, this is a great book.